Now I'd like to move into our keynote. I'd like to introduce Bob Perry, who's the Senior Vice President at Panasonic, to the stage. Thanks so much.
It's a little bit strange. I feel like the only CE guy in a sea of people who actually behind the scenes make all this stuff really happen. So, in fact, I am, so I should feel that way, I guess. So, first of all, thank you for inviting me here. What I wanted to do when I got the call and was asked to come, I wanted to talk about, from our side of the business, what are the things that are impacting us, because I believe they, in fact, directly impact you. And the goal of the conversation and the presentation is to really start a conversation and to incite and elicit some thoughts and drive perhaps a little bit of controversy, but more importantly, drive a different way of looking at the same set of facts. So I'm going to present some facts from our side of the street, so to speak, and share them with you, and hopefully that will create some interesting chats. And then I believe Leslie's going to come up and ask me the really, really tough questions. And I've basically said, ask anything you want, and hopefully we have time for some audience questions as well. So first of all, what I'd like to say about the TV of tomorrow from our perspective is everything changes. And it seems really trite, but it's substantially more significant than people would believe, because everything changes constantly. In our business, we have a one-year cycle. So if you think about the consumer electronics products that are sold in high volume in the industry today, they have a one-year life cycle. Typically, products are introduced sometime between January and April, restocked into the retail channels, web, etc. So if you want to think about something that's kind of boggling, the TVs that Panasonic is introducing right now into the marketplace today, the new ones that will replace it are already locked. In other words, the feature set, the user interface, the technology, the hardware, all of that for next year's TVs, 2011, are already locked. We haven't gotten feedback from the marketplace for 2010 products yet, because we're literally launching them now. So that's the kind of engineering lead time it requires in our business to drop technology out to the marketplace. So it's a very, very high-risk activity, and these businesses are very big. As you've probably seen in the consumer electronics business, there's no such thing as a small TV company, and the number of TV companies continue to shrink because the level of capital investment and risk is very, very high. So I want to provide some perspective on why we think the business changes so much, and a little historical perspective is fun. So Ma Bell, and for many of us when we were growing up, we could buy exactly one phone, and it was black, and you really couldn't buy it. You could only rent it for about $1.50 a month. And so in general, every American household, roughly 55, 60 million households, rented a phone for $1 a month. You start doing the revenue implications. It's a pretty big number. So what happened is that Congress passed the Telecommunications Act. And it's really fundamentally important to understand this, because this philosophy goes all the way through all of our business operations, even today. When Congress passed the Telecommunications Act, what they basically first said is, we want technology to flower. We want consumers to have great technology. The way we do that is we foster innovation, and we stop people from controlling innovation. So what they basically said is, the telephone company has to have a national standard for how the telephone works, and consumers can bring their own devices. And magically, some things happened, right? Like the answering machine, the fax machine. Little insignificant things like that flowered by Congress decoupling literally the service from the hardware. And in fact, that's taken place today in electrical transmission in the United States as well, where today you can buy your power from one company and you pay a separate bill or a separate company for the transmission of the power. This happened in the long-distance business when we decoupled the wires from the service, and you know exactly what consumers did when that happened. So what about your cable company? Now this sends shivers down everybody's spine. So the question is, in the cable industry doesn't like to talk about it, and I'm certainly not saying Congress is going to do this, but when, if ever, do they decide that in fact all those wires that are on the road in front of the house, stapled to the pole, become a common carrier environment where now the pipe is decoupled from the services that ride on them? Interesting philosophy. It's certainly happened in many other businesses so far. So that gives you some perspective on how certainly the Congress views these things and what the American people are somewhat being accustomed to, even though they don't understand all the details. So from a consumer perspective, I'll share a few thoughts with you. Number one, they hate boxes. Now, they don't just hate their cable box or their satellite box. They hate all boxes. They hate our boxes too, but they hate boxes because they're not easy to use. And in fact, today, for a consumer to operate the products that are in their household, what they have to have in their head is the wiring diagram. So your mom, me, and our kids, which of course learn it faster and do it better, they have to know the wiring diagram. They have to know that the Blu-ray disc is connected to HDMI number 1, and the audio from the Blu-ray disc is connected to the AV receiver into input number 63, and if they press all the buttons right, it will all work. It's very exciting, and it drives them crazy. They also hate cable. Now, I say cable, they hate anybody who provides content to them that they can't control because they pay too much in their mind. Now, we all know what it costs to create great content, but in their mind, in their perception, they pay too much, they have no control, they have no flexibility, and they're forced to bundle. Whether they are right or wrong actually doesn't matter a bit. It's the perception that counts. And it's the perception when they talk to lawmakers that counts, and that's what's driving a lot of public policy in the debates today. So the real point here is that when consumers get a chance to change and they understand it, they will flee, and they will flee fast. So they fled to MCI and Sprint in the long-distance business. They then fled to Vonage. And then they fled to Magic Jack, which has forced Vonage to bring down their rates from $29 to $24 to $14.99. So these are real events that affect consumers, and if we are not sensitive and aware of it, it affects the way that we do business, the way we do business together, and the way we do business with the ultimate people that buy our products, consumers. So our challenge, of course, in this environment is to delight consumers by giving them what they could not imagine, but creating a situation where they believe they cannot live without it. So when you imagine the implications of this, we have to create things that consumers cannot envision. We have to communicate it to them and educate them so that they understand from a value standpoint what it is and why they would like it. And we have to create an environment where, in fact, they have such a paradigm shift in their mind that they cannot simply envision life without it. It is an amazing thing, this power that we all collectively have. It's also an amazing responsibility and, of course, a huge job. Billions are made and billions are lost in pursuit of this objective. But how do we do it? Because the world we're in is changing very, very dramatically. So I'll share some of my world. So, for example, on the left-hand side, you can see this beautiful TV, and you're wondering what's on the screen of that TV. Well, that TV is actually turned off. That's a reflection on the retail floor. So that TV chassis may have cost $12 million just to spin up the electrical chassis and taken 14 months to develop. And in fact, everything I can tell the consumer about this marvelous television is that it costs $598, and there's a little bit of detail there about what that TV does. And we all hope to God that the consumer understands what that is. And of course, the odds of that, you guys take a bet on it, I won't. But that's the world that we live in today. And of course, we have a magical display for Blu-ray there in the middle in another environment. And by the way, these environments are really important, because when you look at who controls the television business in the United States, it's not little itsy-bitsy multinational companies like Panasonic, it's retailers. In the United States, the retail channel has the power, believe it or not. In fact, if you want to look at an ugly P&L, download our P&L and take a look at it as a corporation. None of you would sign up for it, trust me. So, we build these really cute displays, and in our TVs we have demo modes, and we do our very best to educate the consumer about what is this really cool technology that we want them to know about and not be able to live without. And I have to tell you something, it is a battle every day. Up in the upper right-hand corner, you're wondering, is this that magical picture of North Korea at the nighttime on the left where there's no lights? No. That's Walmart's footprint in 2007. Walmart today owns 40% of the television business in the United States. And so we have the challenge, all of us together, by the way, because ultimately a lot of your technology ends up on our stuff, of making the consumer go into this magical wall of televisions. And basically what we say to them is, pick, right? Pick. So differentiation is a huge challenge. So to us, we want this environment where we can show these enriched products and these enriched features that will change their life and delight the consumer, right? And that's our challenge together. However, consumers have voted. And what they've really said when they voted is, I prefer to go to a wholesale club or a mass merchant with low or no service to buy my products. I'm going to do a little research in advance because I don't like salespeople. Okay. They're really pulling this rug out from under us, right? Here's all these cool things you've got to do to make your technology exciting to them. And by the way, we're going to throw up every possible roadblock to you. So a company of our size, and right now, if you look at the sweet spot of the television business, which is 37-inch screen sizes and larger, we're the number 2 television company in the United States. Little bitty companies like us, we probably spend 10, 20 million bucks a month in retail trying to communicate to consumers about why to buy our stuff and what's cool about it and how to make the right decision. So amazing challenges, and we share these challenges. And yet there's more coming. Because this year we're going to start selling 3D. In fact, on Monday in New York, we're going to actually start selling the first 3D systems to consumers. We're going to sell 3D televisions and 3D BD players. And we've already announced our relationship with DirecTV, who is going to offer 3 channels of 3D starting this spring to consumers. And so this is a new paradigm shift, but we've got to communicate it. Now, as you guys know, about 12 years ago, we started doing a digital television transition. And at the time we started doing that, a lot of people started screaming, Sinclair Broadcasting. Does anybody know who they are? They testified before Congress, consumers do not want high definition. They don't care, they don't want it. Of course, why do I remember these names? Just because it's fun, right? So anyway, and I have a list, and I'll bring them out later of all the things that people said. But all kidding aside, consumers don't know what they want. It's our job to put it in front of them, let them experience it, and let them pick. But boy, is it a lot of work. So 3D is here. Every major consumer electronics company will develop and introduce 3D TVs by June of this year. Every consumer who goes into a store after June of this year will see and experience 3D TV. And vast numbers of consumers have already experienced it. When we did the digital transition in the United States, starting when the FCC issued their ruling on April 14th of 1997, I know, it wasn't that long ago, consumers had never seen a high-definition picture. They had no idea what it was. Imagine that. We actually got the U.S. Congress to pass a law telling the FCC to pass a regulation to require a digital transition in our TV infrastructure without consumers even understanding what it is. We don't have that problem in 3D. We also don't have a government mandate. Most consumers have seen 3D. Some have actually seen good 3D and some have seen bad 3D, but they've all seen 3D. And when they go into a store this spring, in fact, starting next week, they're going to look at regular high-definition televisions, because today all televisions are high-definition, and they're going to look at 3D and they're going to make a decision. Now, there's not going to be a lot of content available early on. I think we've heard that before. But consumers are making a 12-year durable goods purchase. And so many of them will want to be protected for the future, future-proofed, so to speak. So many consumers will buy these 3D sets, and many of them will also buy these 3D BD players as well. And some of them, in fact, the number of DirecTV households today that will be able to receive a 3D broadcast signal from DirecTV and connect it to these sets is more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I can go on, million households today that can receive that signal and plug it to these sets. So this transition will also happen quite fast. 3D isn't just about sharks that jump out and want to bite my head off, as interesting as that is, right? 3D is about experiencing television in the way it should be experienced, because we've got high definition, and right now the high definition of television exceeds the capacity of the human eye to see definition. I'm not talking about when you're in the store and your face is 3 inches from the TV and you say, my God, I can see the dots. What I'm talking about is when you're sitting in a living room 8 to 10 feet away from a 50-inch screen that's showing an HD image, your eyeballs probably could not see more resolution even if we delivered it. So we've already got the resolution revolution done. We've also got the audio revolution done. We now have 5.1, 7.1, 9.1, 28.1, whatever channels of digital audio available to the consumer. We have more channels of digital audio conceivably available than there are spaced amount speakers on the wall in the average household. But anyway, I'm just teasing, but 5.1, we've got the surround sound thing done. So the last leg of the stool is making TV more real, and that's what we're doing this year, and it has huge implications on what you do. Because in the digital environment we are in today, where the consumer watches high definition, they watch 1080p Blu-ray, and they also watch analog being broadcast digitally, everybody is in this mad rush to make sure all their content is actually authored in the highest possible resolution and best format, which now will mean 3D. And so what we're doing at Panasonic, this is my real quick plug, but you guys have probably heard about it, we helped develop the standard through Panasonic Hollywood Labs. We actually author Blu-ray 3D discs at that facility and send them out for duplication. We build stereoscopic 1080p 3D production cameras. We have invested with DirecTV and other partners to make sure that 3D broadcast content can get to the home. We are directly investing in the creation of 3D HD content, so there is content to actually broadcast, and we're producing the consumer electronics products that consumers buy in order to do that. In other words, end-to-end ecosystem development, and we're moving along very quick, and we're getting there. The last part of the revolution I'd like to share with you, which I think you are all familiar with, but perhaps not, is IPTV. Everybody wonders, what is it? Is it a disruptive business model? What's going to happen? If you were here yesterday, we had a little bit of fun with it. The reality is it'll be a mixed environment for many, many years to come, and consumers ultimately will make the choices. However, our industry, all of us collectively, are now actually going to deliver all this stuff we've been talking about. For most consumers, interactive TV is an interesting concept that is yet to flower. And in fact, what we're doing with IPTV is not truly interactive. So a lot of your work is yet to flower, and we're very excited and we're looking forward to seeing that being available to consumers. And as a technology company, we're hoping that you can help lead us in so many ways to deliver this technology to consumers. But it's not just about over the top. It's about new services and new capabilities, and I'll give you just a couple of examples. About 70% of all the televisions we sell this year will have our VieraCast platform, which is a thin client. Basically, it connects to a Panasonic server, which streams to the television a user interface. The consumer communicates through that and tells the server what to send to the TV. It means that it's from the time we decide to drop an application on our server to the time the consumer actually starts getting it, from the day we have the first conversation, can be as short as 60 days. It's not just about dropping linear applications or weather or news or sports. We've enhanced it, and we have Skype on TV now so that the consumer can buy a special camera and microphone assembly that plugs into the television. Why special? Why not just a regular webcam? Because consumers sit on the couch when they watch TV, and we assume they want a video conference from their couch. So we need a longer focal length lens and better microphones. And they will be able now to talk to people around the world free on Skype in HD quality from their television. So that is a game changer for all of us. We're saying Skype, yes, we get it. Please do not forget, all of us, we are weird. We are really, really weird. There still are people who don't have computers in their homes. Television penetration is less than 100%. And out of that 7 or 8% who don't have TVs, they do not all have deer hanging up in their shed. All right, I'm having a little fun, but the reality is that we are weird, and if we can't remember that we're weird, we will make mistakes, because we're weird. So we have to remember what everybody else out there is who's actually spending money to buy our stuff. Now, they'll be less weird. Of course, we'll get weirder over time. That's just the way things change. Anyway, so Skype and VieraCast, really, really cool. Now, let's think about 3D over IP. And what kind of applications does that enable? Because it's not just about, is my show more fun? It's about value, right? So let me tee up an application for you. Imagine that I go to Ticketmaster, who of course owns the world. I'm just teasing, only part of the world. And I decide that I want to buy a ticket in a venue. And I go into that venue and I decide what seat I want. And then I click. And what happens is somebody renders, using the same kind of software that I have in games today, a view of a rock concert or whatever that event's going to be from that seat in 3D. I can look around. I can see that really big pole that's going to be in front of me on the $75 seat. And if I move myself over to this other seat, I can see what a great view I'm getting for $957 or whatever the step up on that seat is. And I'm just teasing, but think about it for a minute. Just like the wine business, if all you drink is bad wine, you don't appreciate good wine, well, we need to lead people to appreciate what it is if they spend more. And that's how you change the value proposition in consumer behavior. So what I'm saying is that these technologies, including the interactivity that you're building, and we've heard so much about over the last day or so, create real value as long as we figure out how to communicate them and how to make them happen. So a lot of really cool things happening. I don't really care whether it's over the top, under the top, or down the middle. All I care is we give the consumer what they want, and will they actually buy it and pay for it. So anyway, I want to thank you for listening to me, and I know Leslie has a lot of questions. I just thought I'd share with you. I'm used to tough questions. The first picture is announcing the breakthrough cable card agreement with the cable industry, and we all know how wonderful that's flowered. And the other one is testifying why Comcast should not be able to buy AT&T broadband. I just thought I'd share. Anyway.